Hello, my friends and followers. Thank you for joining me on this live reading of my book, The Little Stranger at Your Door. I'll start at the beginning of my story, but please let me know in the comments below if you would like me to jump from story to story or read from the beginning. Okay, I hope that you're sitting comfortably, and I'll begin. My beginnings. My roots were bestowed on me by my Italian father and my Welsh mother. Their fathers, my grandfathers, Agostino and Evan, were not to know that their two cultures, that of the Italian and Welsh, would collide in years to come. Agostino, my grandfather, began his life in Prato, a village in the municipality of Pontremoli, Tuscany, Italy. An Italian census going back to the 1700s revealed that the Necchis made a living by working on the land, gathering the porcini mushrooms and chestnuts, which grew in abundance and were sold in the local markets. A handful of the men, who had craftsman skills, carpentry and stonemasonry, were able to increase the family's income by using these skills to maintain the village houses, which were hundreds of years old. Agostino, like some of his cousins, was a cabinet maker, working for a spell in Florence, but living in the village where most were unable to read or write. I learned from the Italian census at that time that my grandfather was the only one in the home who was named as literate. The young men eventually decided to join many other Italians at that time emigrating to England. Agostino walked with two cousins to the Bay of Genoa, a considerable distance from Prato, to board a ship that would take them to an unknown country. I can only imagine their excitement leaving their home in the mountains, despite having no knowledge of the English language. Having arrived in London, the young Italian soon spotted an opportunity to open a restaurant in Villiers Street, located next to Charing Cross Station, and according to all accounts was successful until the national strike, when Agostino allowed hard-up customers to pay their bills on the slate, to be paid later. The later date never materialised and the restaurant closed. It was at this restaurant that Agostino met and married Florence, the daughter of a gilder, Henry Kell, and his wife Emma, and the granddaughter of Marylebone waistcoat makers George and Elizabeth Kell. And it's this Henry Kell, my great-grandfather, who in 1923 sailed to Egypt at the time Tutankhamun's tomb was opened. He'd been requested to repair by gilding Tutankhamun's chair, which had been discovered in a tomb. Agostino, following the closure of his restaurant, was employed by Waring & Gillows, a renowned fine furniture company in London. He became supervisor of the parquet floor laying branch of the company, taking my father, Enrico, known as Bunny, as his apprentice at the age of 13. I remember the stories of their work laying the floor of the Tower Ballroom, Blackpool, and that of building the Rolls-Royce stand in London's Earl Court, a stand which was dismantled and erected every year. Florence and Agostino's family increased until they had 12 children, 6 sons and 4 daughters, with my father, Enrico, being their second born. The girls, like their ancestors, became seamstresses, and the boys craftsmen, especially in cabinet making. My Welsh grandfather, Evan, known as Ianto, lived in the small village of Pontlotin in the Rhymney Valley in South Wales. He came from a long line of coal miners with a culture of music and dancing and chapel twice a day on Sundays. My grandmother Amelia left the family when my mother Gwyneth was 3 years old and her brother Ianto too. Their father brought the children up on his own in their small home, which stood at the foot of old stone steps along a track overlooking the river Rhymney. At the top of the steps were 3 cottages, each with a family. Sarah, a widow whose husband, an army officer who had been killed in action in the First World War, lived in the first cottage with her 4 children. A kind lady, she'd taken pity on her neighbour Ianto, offering help from time to time, then some years later inviting him to move into her home with his children. Despite the crowded conditions, Gwyneth enjoyed the company of the 2 girls, Dolly and Margie, and their brothers, Alfie and Joey. My mother Gwyneth was a lively youngster who, together with her brother Ianto, entertained the locals by dancing and singing on stage. In school, she excelled at mathematics, and winning a classroom competition, was invited to the home of the headmistress to listen to her new crystal radio. Ianto and the two boys became firm friends, eventually joining the Royal Navy. While Dolly and Margie left the village to work in London, Gwyneth was already looking into the future, and on leaving school at the age of 14 was also attracted to the bright lights of London, where work was readily available for young girls. She went into service for a Jewish doctor and his wife, and nanny to his twin babies, as well as general home help, including cooking for the family. It was at this point that the two worlds of the Welsh village Pontlottyn and the mountain village of Prato, Italy, collided. The visiting Italian boy at the doctor's home set his eyes on the new nanny waiting at the door with a week's laundry, and in his words later, "I took one look at her in her smart nanny's uniform, fell in love, promising myself to marry her one day." Bunny, despite his Italian blood, had light blonde hair, while Gwyneth was black-haired with olive skin, inherited from her Romany grandmother. They married when Gwyneth was 18 and Bunny 21, beginning their married life in a London flat, with Gwyneth still working for the doctor, and Bunny being given work from time to time by an Italian ice cream company, painting signs for cafes and ice cream trucks, as well as shop window dressing for local grocer shops. Before long, Gwyneth realised that she was expecting a baby. I was due to be born when she was still 18. Apparently, she was at work when her labour began prematurely. I was born 1 month early, leaving them unprepared. So I was put to sleep in a drawer on the floor. Fortunately, her employer, the doctor, allowed her to continue working for him, taking me with her to work each day. After my birth, my father was keen to boost the family income, so he taught himself to play the piano accordion, busking each weekend night outside West End theatres. At that time, they'd formed a close friendship with an Irish couple, Bridie and Paddy, who was also able to play the piano accordion. My mother often talked about the past to me, and one day related a story about this accordion, which had been a great source of income in hard times. For me, it was a fascinating glimpse into the hardships of that time in history, and of the camaraderie which develops between those sharing the challenges of wartime Britain. This was her story. "Can Paddy borrow Bunny's piano accordion?" Bridie asked me when she turned up at the door one morning. "We've run out of money, and Paddy's lost his job. He wants to busk over the weekend, try to earn a few bob to buy some food for the little ones." I knew that Bunny had been guaranteed a few weeks' work for the cafe owner, so the accordion would lay unused for a while. Money was hard to find then, and though pregnant again, I felt lucky to still have my job with the doctor. So I was happy to help my friends. It was the mid-1930s, with the threat of war hanging over us, but me and Bunny got by, with him topping up his wages with odd jobs and busking. "Gwyneth, when you go to Bridie's, can you bring my squeeze box back? There's a big show in the West End at the weekend. I need to do some busking there," Bunny asked me a few weeks later. I told him, "Yes, Bunny, I'll go tomorrow on my day off." I lifted you from your pram and went down the steps to Bridie's basement flat. "Hello, Bridie. Bunny sent me to collect the accordion. Did Paddy manage to make enough money to go to the shops?" "Well, yes, he did, thank you, Gwyneth. He had a good busk." Bridie was hesitating. "Look, Gwyneth, I'm sorry, but the accordion's not here." "Oh, don't worry, Bridie," I said. "I'll come back later." "And that's the problem, Gwyneth. I don't know how to tell you." Hope that you enjoyed this reading. I will be doing it every Friday on this channel. Please like and subscribe. And if you've bought the book, can you leave a review on Amazon, please? It really helps. See you next time.